Hi there. In this video we're going to talk about leadership. What is leadership and how does it differ to management? We're going to talk about management and the role of the manager within the organization. And the last thing we're going to talk about is decision making, because each of the functions of management has something to do with making decisions within an organization in order to prioritize and make sure that business objectives are being met. So first of all, what is leadership? Leadership is all to do with ruling, guiding, and inspiring your people, motivating your people on a vision so that the whole organization can follow you on that particular vision and set yourselves on a road to meet agreed objectives in the future. What is management? Management is all to do with getting things done, which is of course different to leadership. It is all to do with planning, organizing, directing, as well as controlling resources within the organization. Let's just look at each of those different functions in a bit more detail. First of all, planning. A manager has to plan, has to basically set objectives for the organization. And by the way, typically that has to do in four different areas. First of all, planning, by the way, is looking at the future. You have to decide, what am I going to deliver to the market, what I'm going to sell as product, as a service, and so on and so forth. Of course, planning does not happen in a vacuum. You have to understand your external environment, either from an economic, legal, political perspective, and make sure that you understand that and you have a keen eye on that and make sure that there are no changes happening to that economic environment, in order then afterwards maybe you also then have to change your planning. After that, of course, you draw up the plans for each of the four functional areas within the business. That is HR, finance, operations, and marketing. And then last but not least, you also need to make sure that the resources are there, that the resources are planned for, so that you have the best possible outcome and the best possible probability for you to be successful and not to fail in your ventures. All of that has to do with planning. After that, of course, you need to organize the resources that you receive in order to make sure that your production happens in the most efficient way. So that is all to do, of course, with organizing your resources needed. The third function is to do with directing, and here we're talking about leading and communicating. What it means is literally motivating all of your people in order to go after the agreed objectives, but also being able to communicate either with your peers, with your senior management, so communicate upwards, as well as downwards, i.e. communicating to your subordinates in order that they all understand what needs to be done. And last but not least, of course, what you also do is you control. And control is basically your review, and you look at reporting of the performance. By the way, that can be financial performance, either of your division, department, or the whole business, the business as a whole. It can be, of course, employee performance, to make sure that what's the level of absenteeism, what's the training costs, how much is it to get new resources into the business and new human resources. And last but not least, it also could be, for instance, in case of social reporting and ethical reporting around how much pollution does the business create and how can we maximize it, and so on and so forth. Now, Of course, all of these functions, by the way, have something to do with decision making and prioritizing. So for instance, in the case of planning, first of all, in terms of setting objectives, you need to make a decision as a business, what are the objectives that I'm going to use? Is it revenue, is it profitability, or are there any other objectives that I'm going to go after in my next financial year, and so on and so forth. So you need to make a decision around that. Of course, you need to make a decision around what kind of resources do I need, and is there a pitfall, is there a difference between the resources that I have today, currently, as well as the resources that I need going forward in order to be successful. So you need to make a decision around the resources. Of course, directing, it's all making decisions around what is the best way, for instance, to motivate my people. Is it a case of monetary, so i.e. Pure financial targets, or are there any other ways of motivating the people that are working for you, maybe making the jobs more interesting, more challenging, and so on and so forth. So you need to make a decision around that. And then last but not least, in terms of decision making in controlling, it's all to do with, okay, have I reached my targets or not? And what are the lessons that can be learned? And what improvements do I have to make to my business in order to make sure that I will be successful next time in reaching my specific target. I hope this makes sense, and I'll see you soon.